What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. I haven't been going live as much or uploading as much as I used to or need to because I still love my channel. I still love my audience. I still love the content that I do. I still love coming out here and chopping it up with the people every now and then. It's just I've been caught up a whole lot with all the work that I've been doing here in Budapest, teaching English. Also, writing this MF Doom script is like killing me. I just got past Mad Villainy. I've been listening to the albums nonstop every single day, but Mad Villainy was something I really had to get off my chest on how I feel about the album. And I'm very, how can I say this? Culturalist theory related to MF Doom. If you don't know, I'm a writer for my YouTube channel, so go check out all the content on culturalist theory that I wrote for. I have a new video out on Jodeci, their top 10 singles. I did the writing for the Twista episode, the DJ Quick episode, the Joe Budden episode, the Khalees episode, the Mystical episode. I have a whole playlist on my channel covering the artist that I've done before. So I highly encourage y'all to go out there and support your boy. So this is live right now. I got the chat right here on my phone. So anybody jumping into the comments, I will respond to the comments. Looking forward to hearing what people have to say. Right now, the YouTube channel is going up crazy, like 3,000 views in the past 2 days, which is abnormal for me. I hit usually like about 1,000 every 2 days or so, like 500 views a day. But obviously, my YouTube videos about my trips in Albania continue to be big breadwinners, big money makers, big engines in the cog of this channel on generating revenue, generating interest, generating attraction. This is still a very small channel, about 2,700 subs. So thank you to everybody who has subbed and continues to sub even when I'm not uploading. Thank you to all of you. I appreciate all of you coming out and supporting your boy, and join in on the lives because I will go live often if I see people really react to what I have to say and what I'm talking about. And yeah, also the white supremacists, the right wing nuts who insist on posting my stuff everywhere. I appreciate y'all too because every click from y'all just puts more money in my pocket. The ad revenue is crazy. I want to hit my $100 mark for this month. I'm about $20 away. So y'all continue to pile in, leave comments, leave your likes, leave your dislikes, whatever stuff like that. We'll build with y'all. We'll chop it up with y'all. But y'all gotta be men. Y'all have to be actual men. Y'all claim to be the Aryans, superior race, the men who are meant to conquer the world and dominate over all non-white people. Well, here's your chance. Actually talk to us, build with us, and let's see if we can actually have a civil discussion about your stupid ideas. But today we're going to be talking about a topic on my channel that I have covered extensively. It's essentially how I built my channel, and it's the most attractive part of my channel. It's the BLAXIT content. And BLAXIT, for people that don't know, stands for Black Exit, meaning Black people from the diaspora, leaving the countries, particularly in the Americas and in Europe, to return to Africa. That's one definition. Or Black people leaving the countries that they were brought up in and choosing different areas of the world to inhabit because they are sick of the treatment that they are getting in their countries. I see this movement as different than the passport bro or passport girl movement. It's not to go to different countries to sleep with a bunch of women or men, to do sex tourism, to just travel for fun or leisure, or for economic opportunity. I view the BLAXIT movement as essentially being about leaving the countries that we come from because we are sick of the white supremacy, the racism, the discrimination, the second class treatment, particularly in the US. I did not come up with the BLAXIT title. I found out about it from another group of people that created a website called BLAXIT, and their movement is still strong. I believe they are primarily focused on returning people to Africa. But my opinion, as somebody who has lived in Africa and also lived in Europe, lived in Asia, lived in the Middle East, I have not lived in Latin America, but I did visit certain Latin American countries and that sort of stuff. My opinion is that we as Black people should try to find the best place on earth wherever we can find the most happiness. And that doesn't matter if it's in your home country, but just in a different state or a different department, different region, or in a totally different nation, whether that be in Europe or in Asia or in Africa. I believe focusing solely on Africa as the place where we can find liberation is limiting us. And it can also cause, how can I say this, disappointment, because there are certain Black people who can deal with living in third world conditions. Let's just keep it absolutely real. This is Simon Hill Keeps It Trill, so I'm going to keep it real with y'all. Only a small select handful of black people can deal with living in third world conditions, and that includes me, because I have lived, really lived in third world conditions. Years of my life in Tunisia, months of my life in Kenya and in Tanzania, and me and my wife, we can do it. But I don't know if every black person around the world can really live with electricity cutting off for 7 hours a day, with people burning trash outside, with no sort of, how can I say this, public services like buses or trains and that sort of stuff, like how you live in New York or Chicago or LA and Miami or that sort of stuff. I don't know how people can live with the idea that, if you call the police, they literally just might not come. Now, that is certain parts of America too. There are certain parts of America where you call the police and they just might not come, or come hours later and that sort of stuff. But living in the third world, living in the developing world, emerging markets, however you want to describe it, is not meant for everybody. And I'm not saying all of Africa is like that. And in fact, if you are a black American of a certain, you can move to Africa, and your lifestyle in America and Africa, can live a very good life in Cape Town. You can live a very good life in, you can live a very good life in Cairo, in Casablanca, in Accra. You can live a very good life with a certain amount of money, and there is a lot of luxury in Africa. But for the vast majority of us, for black Americans and other black people from the diaspora, we know that we are coming from a lower socioeconomic class. So moving to those African nations might not be us living in the best of circumstances. We might be living like middle class people do in Kenya. And living as a middle class person in Kenya, I'm being absolutely real, is very similar to living like a lower income person in America when it comes to the amenities. Me and my wife are releasing videos of our travels in Kenya and in Tanzania right now on our second channel, Backpack Bandits. We show you the apartments. We show you what it's like when the power goes out and you have to go outside to get Wi-Fi if you work online or something like that. We show you that the power can go out even in the supermarket. Even in the supermarket, shopping in the supermarket, everything goes black, right? There are insects that are very large roaches and mosquitoes and that sort of stuff. Diseases as well. These are different things in Africa that make it hard for some black Americans to live. And that's just talking about the amenities. And we're not even going to jump into yet the cultural differences. The cultural differences. Let's keep it absolutely real. This is Simon Hill Keeps It Real, and I've been honest. I've always been honest on my channel. There are a lot of great things about living in Tanzania, living in Kenya, living in other black African nations where everybody looks like you and you don't have that pressure of the white gaze on you, or living in a openly white supremacist society like how we live in America and Canada and Brazil, in the UK, France, et cetera, right? But there are cultural differences. How are you going to react when everybody around you is musty? Hella musty. I'm not playing. Hella musty. Everybody's armpits, you can smell them from a mile away. How are you going to deal with black folks whenever they see a white person? Every now and then, their eyes start bugging out. They start cooning and shucking and jiving and that sort of stuff. How are you going to deal with black folks like that? How are you going to deal with the rampant corruption that is in African society, where you come with your American ass, your British ass, or that sort of stuff, try to build with the Africans, and all they do is try to rip you off. These are things that I've spoken about on my channel. There are positive things about Africa, but I will never sugarcoat any sort of society just to make certain people feel good, whether they be Africans, whether they be white folks, whether they be black Americans. I'm always going to keep it real and give my 2 cents. And you need to trust me, because I actually go to these places. I document my entire experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the musty. I cover everything. So this is why we need to talk about sincerely moving to Africa. What does it actually do for us? For a certain segment of black folk who are really sick and tired of the racism, and they can deal with the burning trash, or they can deal with substandard living, or the electricity going out. They just want to get away from white supremacy as far as they can. Africa might be the place for you. But for other people who are more concerned about our safety, we're less concerned about racism and white supremacy and that sort of stuff. We still think it matters, but what we are concerned with is our safety in more important than just that racism, right? Because within Africa, you can have race, not racism, but nationalism, jingoism, xenophobia put against you because you are a foreigner in their nation. And believe it or not, a lot of African nations are not pan-Africanists. They are not pan-black. They're not just going to look at you as the black person and think you're equal to them as a Ugandan or a Tanzanian, because a lot of them, just like in the US, are nationalistic and say Ugandans first, or Kenyans first, or Tanzanians first, Zambians first. And yeah, you might be black like me, but you're Nigerian, you're Brazilian, you're Uruguayan, you're British, right? This is Uganda for Uganda and that sort of stuff. Do you follow what I'm saying, right? And so some black people might be more concerned about living in Europe, living in Asia, where yes, there will be anti-black racism. Yes, there will be white supremacy. Yes, there will be discrimination based on skin color, but it at least will be safer. I'm in Hungary now. And yes, of course, I have experienced anti-black racism here, like I have in every other, mostly non-black country in the majority, right? But I feel safe walking everywhere. Nobody has threatened me with a gun. Nobody's threatened me with a knife. The police aren't double checking me and that sort of stuff. Sure, I get followed in the stores. Sure, some people point and gawk and stare and that sort of stuff. But I feel safe. I feel more safe than in the US. And that is more important. That is more important. And there are some times I felt safe in Africa, but there are some times where I feel more safe here than I did in Africa. And that's something that also needs to be discussed as well. I'm covering a lot of ground before I even get into this article here from the New York Times that hasn't even been published in print yet. So this is an exclusive and a new edition. So we're going to be reading this article, reacting to this article. I only have about an hour and a half before I get back to my English class. I got one more class for tonight. So let's read this and react. And I'll also try to cover the story my guy Craig Mack sent me in the comments. So let's go. BLAXIT, tired of racism, Black Americans try life in Africa. Black people make up about 14% of the US population. Many of them are wondering what it would be like to be part of a majority. All right, so this is a couple here staring out to the abyss, and yeah, they kind of look like the stereotypical American retirees. You know, saved up all their money working for the post office, got that good Social Security check, good pension, and now they get to live freely. I swear, if you're an old American who worked for the government for at least a good 25, 30 years of your life, yeah, life is sweet for you. Sweet. I just couldn't sell out to Uncle Sam like that. Anyway, moving to Zanzibar in 2022, Mark and Marlene Bradley have been embracing island life with Zanzibar is that it is very underdeveloped. And on top of that, while I was in Zanzibar, yeah, I did get ripped off by some tourists. I did get ripped off by locals because I was a tourist. I did go to the store and see whitening soap being sold there, bleaching cream being sold there. I can't be around people like that. I can't be around people that want to rip me off and then bleach their skin. No, can't do that at all. All right. Colette Coleman is the writer of this article. It was published on February 16th, 2024. And I believe the print edition will be available in the New York Times on February 18th. So let's go here. Jessica Washington lives in a 6-bedroom house on a hill with avocado trees and a spectacular view, not far from the rabbit farms she runs. For less than $50,000, Shoshana Kira Ziraba and her husband built a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house on family farmland with goats, turkeys, and about 1,000 chickens. Mark and Marlene Bradley now call themselves islanders and the owners of 3 homes cooled by ocean breezes. All of them are Black Americans who found their new homes in Africa. They are enjoying the substantially lower cost of living, and more important, they said the absence of the racism and discrimination they experienced in the United States. The COVID pandemic and the racial reckoning in the wake of the murder of George Floyd led some Black Americans to seek a different way of life abroad in a movement that some are calling BLAXIT. Those moving to Africa are also looking for an ancestral connection. Their migration is less about money and more about acceptance, a path that many intellectuals and artists have taken before. Today, a new life in Africa is open to people of varied professions who can work remotely. Immigration has been fueled by vocal proponents on social media and by government programs like Sierra Leone's Path to Citizenship and Ghana's Beyond the Return campaign. According to the Diaspora Affairs Office of Ghana, at least 1,500 African Americans moved to the country between 2019 and 2023. Despite the potential concerns for newcomers, including a wave of extreme anti-LGBTQ policies across the continent, Black Americans are still making the trip. So, Very interesting. I'm surprised nobody has reached out to me from the New York Times yet, because I'm more than certain people have seen my videos on Mauritius, on Kenya, on Tanzania, on Tunisia, that sort of stuff. And yeah, I think people don't want to talk to me because they're scared, or maybe they think I'm not real. Maybe they think I'm a lunatic. But I'm pretty sane. I'm pretty even keeled. And I wish somebody reached out to me. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. It would be dope to be quoted in the New York Times. But yeah, I realized though that I also didn't do a lot of the work. It's not like I visited all 54 African nations. I only visited and lived in a handful. So, my experience is very minute when we think about it, really. And I can be humble enough to say that about myself. But yeah, that's another thing that Black Americans have to consider if moving to Africa. Let's say, because generally when we think about Black Americans, it's still very heteronormative, cisgendered. But let's keep it absolutely real. I love all Black life. I have no problems with my LGBTQ Black Americans or anything like that. But if you are a gay Black American, or a bi Black American, a lesbian Black American, a trans Black American, can you really consider moving to Africa? And I know maybe I'm coming across in this video as very anti-African. I am not. I've said it before. If you really, really want to go to Africa and Africa feels like the best move for you, go. And you can also live a great life there. But if you are a gay Black American living in a country like Uganda, it's going to be very tough, especially if you want to live openly gay. I believe the only African nation that has legalized same sex marriage is South Africa. And we have to remember, many Africans are hyper religious. You thought grandma, you thought granny, you thought big mama loved Jesus. You don't know who loves Jesus until you meet the average Kenyan, Nigerian, Tanzanian. You think you're super hardcore Muslim. You think you know the deen. You think you know the Quran front and back. Wait till you meet the Somalis. Wait till you meet the Indians in South Africa. They love some religion in Africa. And so we have to keep it real. The social conservatism in Africa might be something that is very, very uncomfortable for a lot of Black Americans. We're very socially liberal in general. While some people, might frown on same-sex relationships and that sort of stuff, generally, by and large, we are tolerant of our gay brothers and sisters, our lesbian brothers and sisters. We all go to the Black church, and we all know that the choir director is flaming. We all know that many of the people in our pews are flaming as well. Let's keep it absolutely real. We got no problems with gay Black folks, but a lot of Africans are very homophobic, very transphobic, very closed-minded and conservative in that way. And that's fine. They can have their culture in general. I'll say it's fine just for the sake of this argument, but we have to keep that in mind as well. Once again, I'm not trying to come across as anti-African immigration. If Black Americans really feel like that's the best, please, please, by all means, do it, because we are living in the belly of the beast. The worst place for a Black American to be generally is in America. I'll repeat, the worst place for Black life in the world right now generally is America, in my opinion. When we think about safety, when we think about outcomes, when we think about white supremacy, I would suggest Europe, I would suggest Africa, I would suggest Asia. I don't know about Latin America that much, but I would suggest almost any other place that mandates safety first, where our lives will be protected more, because the proliferation of weapons in the US will continue to lead to young children like this losing their lives. The number one killer of people under 18 is what? Gun violence. Gun violence. Let's continue here. So, Shoshana Kira Ziraba, who moved to Uganda in 2021 and lives with her Ugandan husband in a home that he built for them on his family's land, said that the additional support that comes with the communal lifestyle of living has been great for her and her 3-year-old son. Beautiful. I'm glad that she found, the type of life that makes her happy. And I hope he gets the best life possible living in Uganda. All right. So, Miss Washington, 46 of Houston, relocated to Rwanda in 2020. Mrs. Kira Ziraba, 40, moved to Uganda from Texas in 2021. The Bradleys, who are in their 60s, settled in Zanzibar in 2022. Ashley Cleveland, 39, a mother of 2, who runs a company that helps foreigners invest in and grow their businesses in Africa, relocated from Atlanta to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania in 2020, and is now based in South Africa. She said she appreciates that in much of Africa, race is an abstract concept. Okay, I seeing black African people on the money, on the billboards, you immediately eliminate your blackness, she said. She welcomed this change for her children, who were 9 and 2 when they left the United States. Her older daughter, whose skin tone is deep brown, was no longer bullied because of her complexion, she said. I believe this actually is a problem in Africa, that the blackness of Africa might be eliminated. And I've spoken extensively about this because I do not believe we should equate Africanness with blackness, because what does that mean for the Moroccans and the Egyptians and that sort of stuff? And I'm not saying this out of simping or caping or Uncle Tomming or cooning for the North Africans, but I do think if we want Pan Africanism, the question of North Africa really has to be addressed, unless what we're really talking about for Pan Africanism is Pan Blackism or Sub-Saharanism. Because what are we going to do with all of these very strong, very powerful, economically viable nations that are in the north that have all these resources, like Algeria, like Morocco, and that sort of stuff? Are we just going to discount them and say, oh, they're, Mazungu because they're, lighter skinned Arabs or something like that, or Berbers or Amazigh or whatever crazy confused name they have for themselves? No. I'll just say this. I'll just say this. If we're talking about many African nations, from my experience being in Tanzania, being in Kenya, and that sort of stuff, they do not view blackness as sort of a unifying concept as we think of it from the diaspora. In the diaspora, there's the black man head nod. There's the fisting, like not fisting, but you know what I mean, the pound and that sort of stuff. We are sort of on code, and I don't think Black Americans really realize how on code we are. We have words for people that are sellouts, like Uncle Tom, Coon. We have words for people that stand up, like liberators. And we reference our heroes, like Nat Turner, who fought against white supremacy, and Toussaint Louverture. Many of their heroes, unfortunately, let's keep it absolutely real, are some freedom fighters. Yes, there are some great African freedom fighters like Mandela and like the guy from Mozambique and the Mau Mau's and that sort of stuff. But many of their freedom fighters were people who literally just used their words to like trick the white man into like giving up power until eventually it wasn't done anymore. I'm keeping it real. This is what a Tanzanian told me when he talked about Julius Nyerere. And I'm not trying to attack Julius Nyerere, but this is what my guy George told me in Tanzania. He said, Nyerere was good because he could trick the white folks. He just talked to them and eventually made them give up power. So Tanzania could be free and that sort of stuff. They don't have that spirit in their heart of fighting against white supremacy like we do in the diaspora, like the Haitians do, like the Jamaicans do, like the Americans do, like so many other black people from other parts of the diaspora. So they don't have a unifying code of blackness. In fact, they might even view blackness as being something wicked, because once again, white supremacy affects the minds of all people on the planet, and many of them grow up in these nations and see the president as corrupt. He's black. The people at their jobs who rob them of their salaries, they're black. The people in the street that are committing crime, they're black. They're looking all around their society and seeing this dysfunction and attacking the people that look just like them. And then they might associate blackness with wickedness too in Africa. Let's keep it real. I've been traveling all across the world, and one of the common denominators that you'll meet, that you'll see when you talk to people from different parts of the world, if they speak very good English, if they're more westernized or Americanized or something like that, one of the number one things they say is, I really dislike people from my own country. You talk to some Arabs who come from Morocco, Tunisia, and that sort of stuff, they say they hate Tunisians. You talk to some Turkish people, they say they hate Turkish people. You talk to some people from Serbia, they say they hate Serbians. And if you talk to some Africans, they'll say, we hate Kenyans. You know what I mean? Kenyans no good. Kenyans no good. Like, this is the sort of stuff that they'll say. I'm keeping it absolutely real with y'all. Yeah, so that's why y'all got to hear me. A lot of people dislike their own people because their countries are malfunctioning, dysfunctioning. And so they view that weakness not as in pointing the blame at the white supremacists who inflict neocolonialism on their nation, extract them for all their resources, rape and pillage the nation historically and to the present day. They don't point the blame at that. They point the blame at the people who are robbing the nation, right? The corrupt African leaders. And yes, there are a lot of corrupt African leaders, but this also makes people look at the society and view it differently, right? Mississippi and says Mississippi is the poorest state in the nation because, the black people there are dysfunctional. Nobody who is sane, right? At least in our part of the world, in the Americas. But a lot of the people in Africa will look at their nations as malfunctioning, dystopian hellholes and say it's not functioning because we are ran by black Kenyans. And that's why many of the people, then say, oh, the white man is better, or the white man's ice is colder, and that sort of stuff. So I don't like the idea of eliminating our blackness just because we are in all black societies. In fact, black Africans need to be more race conscious. Black Africans need to be more race conscious. And a lot of them aren't because they don't have direct experiences with the white supremacists like we do in the Western world. I'll say that. I'm going to say this too. I believe this woman here, Ashley Cleveland. I saw one of her videos on YouTube. She was talking about moving from Tanzania to South Africa. So, yeah, once again, I am disheartened. They're reaching out to YouTubers. I'm one of the biggest BLAXIT YouTubers, hands down, hands down. Everybody's seen my Tunisia video. Everybody's seen my Mauritius video. Everybody's seen my Albania video. What are they talking about, man? They could have spoke to me. I'm a bit jealous. I'm not going to lie. I'm a bit jealous. I can admit that. Anyway, let's continue here. So we're at home. The Exodus Club has been helping people in the African diaspora move to the continent since 2017. RJ Mahdi, 38, a consultant for the group, moved from Ohio to Senegal 10 years ago. Mr. Mahdi said he had seen an increase in the number of Black Americans relocating to Africa in the past several years. Coming now as they were 5 or 6 years ago, he said. By his estimate, demand for the Exodus Club's services has grown at least 20% every year since its founding, when it had about 30 clients. Becoming a repat felt empowering to Mr. Mahdi as a Black Muslim, he said. In the United States, about 14% of the population is Black, and just 2% of Black Americans are Muslims. I'll be included in that, though I am not a very good practicing Muslim. I identify as such. And Senegal definitely seems like one of those places I wanted to travel to. I still would like to travel to. I've had good interactions with Senegalese people, but I'll say this. Another thing we have to consider is political instability. What is happening in Senegal right now? Has anybody been following the news? The president is trying to, stage a coup. The president is trying to stay in power forever. Corrupt African leader popping up right there. And so now all the people are protesting in the street. It might turn violent. There are many African nations that are beautiful places, but unfortunately, the leadership there is making the people, riot in the street. There's a civil war happening in Sudan, ethnic cleansing done by the Arabs against the Black Masalite population. Many other nations in Africa are, facing a lot of violence and turmoil. There's extremism, there's terrorism happening in these nations. We need to consider that too if we really want to move to Africa as well. Safety first, in my opinion. But this is my opinion, guys. This is just my opinion. Anyway, in Senegal, however, nearly everyone is Black and Muslim. For more reasons than one, we're at home, he said. Mrs. Kira Ziraba, who is Jewish, said that when she moved to Uganda to join her husband, Israel Kira, she went from being a minority within a minority to being surrounded by those who share her race and faith. Mrs. Kira Zaraba, who worked for a commercial real estate company in Texas, now runs Tikva Chadasha Foundation, a nonprofit supporting Ugandan women and disabled children. She and her husband live in Mbale, a small city that is home to the Abayuda Jewish community, which has about 2,000 members. In the United States, Mrs. Kira Zaraba said her identity came with qualifications. Other Black people try to qualify my Blackness because I'm Jewish, and other Jews try to qualify my Judaism because I'm Black. So yeah, that's important because, in the US, because of the intersection of so many of our identities, our faith, our race, our socioeconomic status, our profession, some people, question other people's Blackness. And that's something that we need to stop doing, unless you're a Black Republican. Unless you're a Black Republican, we're not questioning anybody's Blackness anymore. Anyway, Jessica Washington says leaving the United States has given her the opportunity to be her full self beyond being a Black woman. I just wanted a space to be me because I'm going to be Black every day of the week, she said. Amen. Amen. Let's go here. In Uganda, she no longer faces 1,000 cuts of racism, she said. For years, she had made accommodations, big and small, to try to control other people's perceptions, smiling to appear non-threatening, buying nicer clothes to avoid being mistaken for a domestic worker, and straightening her hair to be seen as more professional. She knew she had been acquiescing, but, she said, I didn't know the extent until I didn't have to do any of that. Mrs. Kira Zaraba also went from a one-bedroom apartment in the United States to a 2-acre family compound in Uganda. Her home is a stone's throw from the homes of her parents-in-law and her sister-in-law and the large chicken coop. Her in-laws helped her husband build their house. It's just so nice having all of this additional family support, she said. Now, as somebody who has like lived in so many different places and countries, like getting settled in a country that's different than yours is very hard. But having family can really, really help. And what is helping Jessica here is that she married a Ugandan man, so she's going to get better prices on the homes. She's going to be able to better integrate into that society and that sort of stuff. Me and my wife are sort of starting from scratch in Budapest. Like we came here with like a dollar and a dream. Like nobody helped us get our apartment. Nobody helped us, find out how to move about the city. We sort of did this on our own, and it's not easy. It would have been much easier had she had family here, or if I had family here, or something like that. But it's not easy moving to any country, and it doesn't matter if it's Uganda or if it's Australia, right? That's something that has to be considered as well if you really do want to make that move to Africa. So just consider that. All right, I'm going to jump here. Africa isn't a refuge for all, though. Anti LGBTQ sentiment is sweeping across the continent. In Uganda, the Anti Homosexuality Act, enacted last year, punishes gay sex with life imprisonment and, in some cases, death. That's very ironic because I imagine if you go to prison for years for having gay sex, you're going to have a lot of gay sex in prison. You know what I mean? That's the funny part about that. Anyway, similar bills have been introduced in other African countries, such as Ghana and Kenya. Some LGBTQ people interviewed countered that the United States is no safe haven either. They pointed to violence against transgender people, a growing number of anti LGBTQ bills, and the Human Rights Campaign's declaration of a state of emergency for LGBTQ plus Americans. These interviewees said that depending on what a person was looking for and with discernment, Africa could still be a good option for the LGBTQ community. I'll just say this: if you are a gay Black American or a gay Black person in the world, the only option in Africa is South Africa, generally. And I'm just saying this: I have not been to South Africa, but once again, they're the only ones that have legalized same sex marriage, and possibly the sentiment there is a bit less, how can I say this, conservative when it comes to that. Other than that, I would not suggest for anybody's safety, because I've seen videos on Chaotic where these Ugandan gay rights activists get beat up, killed, have their limbs chopped off, all sorts of stuff. All sorts of nasty stuff is happening to the gay Black folks that are indigenous to those countries. What do you think they'll do to a foreigner? They don't care if you're American. I hate when people say, oh, you're American, you'll be treated differently. No, you won't. Trust me. I've lived I've only lived this life on 33 years as a Black American abroad, and I've hardly ever gotten special treatment. I've worked very hard for everything I've gotten. All right, let's continue here. Davis McIlyala. Oh, these names. Davis McIlyala, 52, an LGBTQ rights activist and the executive director of the Interfaith Diversity Network of West Africa, suggested that instead of deterring immigration, the grim trends could drive it. If our African brothers and sisters are coming, knowing the challenge, and want to join us in the struggle, just as international volunteers headed to Ukraine to offer support, he imagined Black Americans might feel called to help in the fight for LGBTQ equality. I would say no. Obvious, we don't need to go and fight the battle. Uh, we don't need to go and fight the battle for LGBTQ Africans. That's their job in their countries, honestly. And no Black person should feel that strongly about gay rights issues enough that they're willing to go and sacrifice their lives for the LGBTQ cause. Not that the LGBTQ cause is not noble or that being yourself is not noble, but we have bigger things to deal with. We have bigger, your sexual identity is second to your Blackness. I repeat, to all the gay Black folks out there, your sexual identity is second to your Blackness. And what we are seeking refuge from most of the time is safe haven from attacks on our Blackness, whether that be mentally, physically, spiritually, etc. Right? So if you are a Black American who is gay, seeking that in the BLAXIT movement, please consider that. Don't consider that you're going to go join arm in arm in the struggle for LGBTQ plus rights in Uganda or Kenya or Ghana and that sort of stuff. Please go get safety for the very fact of wanting to be safe as a black person in this world. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion, though. All right. But many black people make the transatlantic exodus to stop fighting. Mr. Bradley, 63, who moved with his wife, Marlene, 69, from Los Angeles to Rwanda in 2021 before settling in Zanzibar, said that arriving in Kigali felt like a load off my shoulders. That's very true. Hey, that's beautiful. And like I said before, the idea of moving to Africa just to get away from white supremacy and racism is the number one attractive thing for picking Africa as your BLAXIT destination, which I am not against at all. But I also have to proclaim this, and I'm keeping this absolutely real. This might be the best move for black folks, number one, who have a lot of money, black folks, number two, who are cisgendered, heteronormative, all that sort of stuff. And also, three, for black people who are also in relationships with other black people, right? I'm keeping this absolutely real. My wife is white passing, if not very white. She's white. She's Turkish. She's a white Turkish girl. So, being with a white person in Africa, you will have a different experience rather than if you are with a black person as your partner or spouse in Africa. And this is just something you also have to consider as well. I would love my wife with all my heart. I would never leave my wife for any sort of reason at all. And the world should accept my love for my wife as it is and not put any qualifications or any sort of asterisk on it or anything like that. But a lot of places in Africa, I'll just keep it absolutely real, if you come there with your white husband or white wife, they're going to act totally different as soon as they seen that white person around than if you came in there with a black girl on your arms or a black man on your arms. If you are a black person, I'm keeping it absolutely real. They're not going to be judging you as if you are less to the race or something like that, but you'll start seeing the eyes bucking. You'll start seeing the shucking and jiving. You'll start seeing the step and fetch it routine come out of the Africans as soon as a white person comes around. And if you are a black person who wants to get away from white supremacy, but you don't view fighting white supremacy as in putting limits on who you love, you're going to have struggle. You're going to struggle with that. You're going to struggle with that because that's what I struggled with too. There are people that call me a coon, call me an Uncle Tom because I love who I love. And none of y'all would say this to my face. I would literally whip it out and make y'all suck my dicks if y'all literally coon stuff or Uncle Tom stuff to my face. And nobody's ever done that before. So I know that I know y'all pussy. But if you really think about that, if you really think about that, it's going to be hard to make that decision to move to Africa. Once again, there are places where it might fly by differently. If you choose North Africa, Morocco has a lot of black ass places. Morocco has places where they're almost totally black. Tunisia, the south of Tunisia, pretty damn black as well. And you can live your life there as a person with a person of a different skin tone and possibly not get the same sort of treatment. But it will be a different treatment because there is a lot of racism, anti-black racism in North Africa. So it will be the opposite effect. If you have a white partner going to black Africa, you're going to see the cooning. If you have a white partner and you're black and you go to North Africa, you're going to see the anti-black racism affected against you. So you sort of have to pick and choose your battles. I'm keeping it real. I'm keeping it real tonight when we're talking about BLAXIT. This is why the New York Times didn't want to cite me because I was going to go off. I was going to go off. But shout out to everybody who got quoted in this article. Support to all of y'all. And I wish y'all the best and happiness. All right, let's go to here. With lemon, avocado, mango, and banana trees in arm's reach and Indian Ocean breezes, the Bradleys say they feel great and people back home say they look better. Mr. Bradley, who noted that he and two of his four sons had experienced fraught encounters with the police in the United States, said he would never forget the lighthearted feeling he had when approaching an armed officer in Kigali to ask for directions. The officer greeted him with a smile. Mrs. Bradley also felt relieved and safer in Africa. You don't feel like you're looking over your shoulder, she said. I have to say this from my experience with the police in Africa. I'll never forget when my wife and I were leaving this place called Diani in Kenya and going back to Mombasa to like fly out of the country, go back to Turkey and that sort of stuff. The taxi driver got pulled over by the police and we almost like missed our flight and stuff because the police officer pulled them to the side and basically tried to get a bribe out of the driver, right? Like a good 30 minutes of our trip was delayed because the guy, had to get taken to the police station and made to pay a bribe through M-Pesa. through M-Pesa. Think about that. They're so bold with the corruption in Africa that they'll do the corruption with a money trail. Like you could look up the payments made on M-Pesa, right? And I'll also never forget when I was leaving Tunisia one time, the police at the border, because I overstayed my visa, I had to pay to leave Tunisia, and I pulled out the exact amount that I needed to pay, and the guy said, I need an extra 20. So I'll take this one for me. Like that, just like that. Pulled it out of the stack of bills that I needed to pay to leave the country. And he pulled it out the stack and tried to put it in his pocket. Crazy. Act Dennis jumped into the comments. She said, but we also had police give us a ride in Mauritius as well. Shout out to Acty for jumping into the chat. Yeah, that's true. I had good interactions with police. But the point I'm pointing out here is that the police in Africa might not be racist. They might not beat you over the head or shoot you in the back because you're black, but you will have corruption. You will have a lot of corruption in Africa. You will have to pay some bribes. You will get, some palms that need to be greased by you. There's a video on my second channel with my wife, Backpack Bandits. We went to this zoo called Holler Park in Mombasa, Kenya, and I lied and told the woman that my white wife and I, were Rwandan. And then she just said, I just need money for a Coca-Cola. And so then I gave her like an extra 500 shillings and she let us into the park for an extreme discount. You get me? So yeah. Anyway, shout out to Milovic. So Dobradan, ciao. Zdravo, Milvok, Milo. You're a good guy, a wise man. Greeting from Serbia. Much love to Serbia. I'll always have love to Serbia. Me and my wife met in Belgrade. Got a lot of love for that city. We'll probably go there every year for our honeymoon. Maybe this year. Maybe this year we'll go for our honeymoon. Our anniversary, I mean. Anyway, let's go here. So Mrs. Bradley also felt relieved and safer in Africa. You don't feel like you're looking over your shoulder, she said. The Bradleys, who have retirement visas and live on retirement income, now reside in a newly developed planned community on the island of Zanzibar, about 2 hours by ferry from Dar es Salaam. Most residents of their development were not born in the country. The community's home range in price from $70,000 for a 430 square foot one bedroom to $750,000 for a 3,000 square foot oceanfront villa. With the money the Bradleys would have spent on one home in Los Angeles, they were able to buy 3-bedroom, 2-bath two-bath townhouse, an investment property, and a home for 2 of their sons eventually to live in. I'll just say this: in my opinion, Zanzibar is not the dope, but for real though, I'm glad and mad at the same time that Mauritius does not get the shine. Now, Mauritius don't get the shine because mostly the island is made up of Indians, right? And it's very far away from the mainland, right? There's Madagascar, and then a few hundred kilometers, you hit Mauritius, right? But Mauritius is a very, very dope place. And I highly suggest, if you really want, my opinion, if you really want the BLAXIT movement and you want to be in Africa, Mauritius is the place for Black Americans, in my opinion. This is not a paid endorsement. A lot of Mauritians don't like me because of the video I made covering BLAXIT in Mauritius, but I'm telling y'all, Mauritius is where you get the most utilities. It's very similar to the quality of life. You have many of the amenities that we have in the US. It's safe, generally clean, a lot of nature, great beaches, though the water is freezing. It's not warm like Zanzibar, I'll be honest. But great food as well. I'll be honest with you. If you really, this is for all the Black Americans out there. If South Africa seems too sketchy and dangerous, if Ghana is becoming Atlanta, if you don't like the mustiness of the Tanzanians and Kenyans, Mauritius is where to go. They speak English and French. It's a relatively small. There are cheap places there. That's what I'm saying. That's my opinion. Anyway, gonna jump into the comments. KL said, respect, brother. Love your material. Appreciate it. But please, guys, don't call me brother. Please call me Simon. My name is Simon. I'm not anybody's brother. I have one brother. KL currently dating an Algerian woman. Damn, they're hot. I'll say this. Yeah, the North Africans, they got some lookers. They got some lookers. Okay. So shout out to you and your Algerian miss. I hope she's lovely. I hope you and her tie the knot and have a beautiful family. Milo said 100. and a heart. So hearts to Serbia as well. Much love to Serbia. Dennis Shaheen said, yeah, definitely there were a lot of ads for Americans, but they were mostly directed to white Americans and I guess Europeans. I think Acti is talking about Zanzibar. Yeah, there's a lot of advertisements for buying property in Zanzibar. Zanzibar is going to be a great place to invest if you really want to, have some rental properties there. Great weather year round, but not the best beaches, I would say. Mostly flat land, not a lot of nature. I tried to go hiking on the highest mountain in Zanzibar. I ran across Zanzibar, something I wish I documented once. I ran across the island of Zanzibar, literally ran across the island. And the Africans were looking at me crazy there. And I was running to go to the top of the highest mountain, which I think is about, I don't know, 500, 700 meters. And the police stopped me. They say, what are you doing here? I showed them my passport and they say, go. Because I guess the tallest mountain there is like a military base, something like that. Anyway, Miss Washington is still in awe of her new life in Rwanda. She works as an online teacher with students in South Carolina and has an agricultural visa that allows her to run a rabbit farm near her home near Kigali. So here's Miss Washington right here, raising the rabbits. Okay. I think in Africa, a lot of people eat rabbit too. Like the popular, but also they eat different sorts of meats. Like my friend Josh told me that in Ghana, they eat guinea fowl, right? He said it's very popular. Rabbit is popular too. I've eaten rabbit before. It's okay. A bit tough. But anyway, Miss Washington runs a rabbit farm near her home outside Kigali, Rwanda. She said her move gave her more clarity and the ability to pursue her interests. She said, she shares her 6-bedroom house with her 76-year-old mother. I just never thought that a single woman with a teaching salary would be able to live in a space like this, she said. Her home on an acre of land with avocado trees cost $500 a month and required an initial 6-month payment. Stipulations for upfront rental payments of several months, a year, or even longer are common. That's another thing, man. Different moving costs, right? You thought it's hard to move in with first month, last month, and a deposit. Imagine paying, a year's worth of rent or a year's worth of mortgage before you can move into your African mansion. Wakanda ain't cheap. Wakanda is not cheap. All right. The move has given Miss Washington more room, physically and emotionally. One of the things I wanted to get away from for just a little while was being a black woman. Okay. All right. I don't like that comment. One of the things I wanted to get away from for just a little while was being a black woman, she said. We're going to never stop being black. And that's the thing. Moving to Africa should not erase your blackness at all. It should enhance your blackness. It should enhance your understanding of blackness. And we also should spread our understanding of blackness to the black Africans. Because I'm telling you, Africa will not survive if they continue to have a white worshiping mindset. It will not be Wakanda. It will not be Zamunda if we have the white worshiping concept. And the only people that can save us from that are black folks from the diaspora, from Jamaica, from Haiti, from Brazil, from America, from Canada, from the UK. Black folks who actually have dealt with the devil, know how the devil works, and that's the only way Africa can be saved. I just did the live stream, I believe, a few days ago, covering how in Nigeria, 2 white guys showed up with a piece of paper saying that they were going to open an oil plant, and the Nigerians bought it. And then they didn't open the oil plant. And what happened? The Nigerians were on the hook for a short time to pay these 2 white guys who didn't do anything $11 billion. That's white worshiping. That's white supremacy. And, black Americans would not have let that fly. Black Brazilians would not have let that fly. Black Jamaicans would not have let that fly. We know how tricky them folks can be. But the Africans say, good white folks. The white folks are always good. They will never treat us wrong. No, 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 no. Let's do this. Let's sign the deal. We will make tons of money together. And that's what happened. That's what happened. If you don't believe me, go watch the live stream. I covered it. It's the story, man. Anyway, the move was given. All right, sorry. The move has given Miss Washington more room physically and emotionally. One of the things I wanted to get away from for just a little while was being a black woman, she said. The expectation that she be strong because in America, black women are supposed to be strong, exhausted her. I just wanted a space to be me. I hate to break it to you, Miss Washington, but in Africa, them girls strong. You ain't see them walking around with like jugs of water on their head, like 20 different things balancing on the head. Them girls strong in Africa. All right. While in the US, a $500 monthly rent may seem cheap, in Rwanda, it is a significant amount. In some cases, the large wealth gap between American immigrants and most African leads to friction. But in other cases, locals embrace the infusion of cash. Many governments court the diaspora for this exact purpose. Justin Ngoga, 39, the founder of Impact Route, a company in Kigali that offers relocation services, said that there is little tension between expatriates like Miss Washington and locals. Unlike Portugal and Ghana, where an influx of foreigners drove up costs, Rwanda does not have enough newcomers to produce such a negative economic impact, Mr. Ngoga said. Uh, we are still, I think, at the stage of where we need more people to come, he said. We need people to come and do active retirement here. We need investors. We need talents. Okay, I'm very confused why they mentioned Portugal. Are they talking about how so many like hipsters moved to like Lisbon in the past few years because they heard it was like the poorest nation in Western Europe? Is that why they mentioned Portugal? Is that why? Okay. Do they really have that problem? I want that shirt. That shirt is sick, bro. Give me that shirt. That shirt is fire, fire. All right. Rashad McCory moved to Ghana in 2020, and he also picked up the fashion. I really don't like the African beads. I really don't like the African beads, but that shirt is fire, fire. All right. All right. Rashad McCrory, 44, acknowledged that he left his humble beginnings in the Polo Grounds Towers and Upper Manhattan public housing complex far behind when he relocated from Harlem to Ghana in 2020. Here, we're rich, said Mr. McCrory, who published a guidebook for people moving to Africa. He said he tries to give back. He started a scholarship fund and built a soccer field for neighborhood children. Standing on his balcony in Elmina, Ghana, Mr. McCrory recalled the injustices he said he experienced in New York that spurred him to leave. Top of mind were the frequent stop and frisks, he said, which felt like the police groping and violating him and sometimes left him in tears. I'd rather have the moral dilemma of being in a higher class in the system of classism rather than being marginalized in the system of oppression and racism, he said. I find that a bit problematic. A bit. I understand it. I would rather I would rather be a rich man in a wicked world than, a poor man, a poor black man in a racist world. I get where he's coming from. It's just, I wish more of us had this socialist mindset where we're going to Africa to try to create a more equitable society at the same time get away from racism rather than saying, I'm going to Africa to take advantage of the fact that the US dollar has hegemony, has more power than the, Ghanaian Kissy. I forgot the name of the currency. It's something that has like an E sound in it. Forgot the name. But yeah, he's taking advantage of the arbitrage between the US dollar and the African currencies and said, yep, that's better than being poor and black in America, right? That's a bit hard for me to stomach, but I get where he's coming from. All right. Not for everybody. Some black Americans who move to Africa never get the resolution they sought. Adwoya Yaboa Asantewa Davis, 52, a therapist who moved from Washington, D.C. to Accra, Ghana in 2020, said that black Americans considering the move to escape racism should try therapy first because the trauma of years of discrimination will not disappear with a change of setting and may even resurface when there are foreigners in Africa. Absolutely 1 million%. Yes, it is important for Black Americans to get therapy for the white supremacist racism that we experience. And this therapy does not include at all, in any point, ceding ground to white supremacist talking points, saying that the way we live or the discrimination we face or the oppression we face is our fault. No, 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 no. But there are traumas that we're carrying within us in our DNA because of what happened to our ancestors and also what we experience in our own lives. I've been very open about my experiences as a young person growing up in Monroe, Louisiana, and the racism I affect that happened there and how that still affects me and how I'm dealing with it. And I've also covered very openly the racism that I've experienced abroad. I know I have to be brave to do that. I know I have to be courageous to do that. And I know that it takes a certain level of vulnerability to talk about that. But like what we're seeing now with Cat Williams and Monique and every other comedian around the world right now trying to drop, shade on other comedians and other famous people, a lot of black folks unfortunately don't seek therapy, and we end up lashing out or wilding out in the public space because we don't actually talk about our feelings deep inside of us, right? So then we go on Shannon Sharp's couch and just let out all the hatred and venom that we have for other peers that look like us in our same field because we don't actually talk about those deep inner traumas inside. Cat Williams probably feels like, why was I overlooked? Why is Steve? Why is Cedric? Why is DL considered the kings of comedy? Meanwhile, I sell out arenas all across the world, but I'm just considered the joke because I was the pimp in Friday After Next and that sort of stuff. Same with Monique too. Monique is a wildly talented actress and comedian, and yet and still people don't give her flowers, and she doesn't have the financial backing or the financial rewards that are commensurate to her talent. Right. Same thing for us as Black people, right? As Black Americans, we are wildly talented, wildly creative people, yet and still we face discrimination, not only in our own nation and around the world. And we do need to talk to people to reach some sort of conclusion on how to be happy with ourselves while also challenging the world around us, but not ceding ground at all to white supremacist talking points saying that we're evil, we're wicked, we're lazy, we're stupid. No, we are none of that. We are great, excellent people. We are great, excellent people, and the world tears us down, and we are in charge of building ourselves up. But moving to Africa will not get rid of the racism and white supremacy, because what are you going to do when the Ghanaians tell you, Black American, go back to your country, or we don't want you here, and that sort of stuff, which could happen. Anti-immigrant sentiment pops up in every nation. Every nation, right? In South Africa, they're mad that there are so many Mozambicans in their nation. They're mad that there's so many Angolans in their nation. In South Africa, they're mad there are so many Nigerians in their nation. And sometimes they even lash out violently against the other Black immigrants there. This is widely reported. Blackness needs to be how can I say this, cherished and loved and appreciated. But we have to remember that just being around Black folks will not automatically make it great. If you don't believe me, go watch the videos I made on Kenya and Tanzania. Anyway, sorry for ranting. Let's continue here. So you're coming here and you're expecting that everybody's Black, so I'm going to be okay, Miss Davis said. But then you get here and then you're being othered, viewed as different and separate. The othering goes both ways. Some Ghanaians feel discrimination from Black Americans, said Ekua Otu, 36, a Ghanaian in Accra. Black American communities there can be insular, she said, and that businesses often prefer to hire Black Americans or Indians and Lebanese for senior positions, while qualified Ghanaians are excluded or underpaid. If you're leaving the US to come to Ghana thinking about, I'm coming to the motherland, at least treat us right, Miss O2 said. Yeah, as Black people, when we travel abroad, we have to be very, very careful on how we carry ourselves when we're doing business or working jobs in different nations. I'm very blessed, and I'm also a very hardworking man, but I'm very blessed, and I've had the privilege and opportunity to work in so many different countries. And this is something that most people cannot say. Most people only work in one country their entire life, right? And being here in Hungary, I am very cognizant and very wary and aware of the idea of seeing this Black man walk into this Hungarian bank, this Hungarian business, this Hungarian school where I'm teaching English or something like that, and people saying, who the hell is this guy? Oh my God, the world has changed so much. Even the Negroes are coming to Hungary and taking our jobs and that sort of stuff. I know I'm very, very, very aware of that, right? And I tread very carefully, not on some coon stuff, not on some Uncle Tom stuff, but on some stuff like I want to be respectful to these people and show them that I'm grateful, and also that I'm, how can I say this, respectful to their nation and respectful to the opportunity that I have to work in this place, right? And Black Americans need to do the same thing too, even if we're in all Black Africa, right? When we go to Ghana, when we go to Kenya, we should not be running around saying, y'all need to do things like how we do it. Or why are y'all so this, that, and the third, right? We don't like it when the Africans come to America and say Black Americans are lazy, they are stupid. Why can they not get ahead? I have been in America 2 years and I have a Benz. I have been in America 2 months and I have a BMW. This is what the Nigerians say. This is what the Africans say when they come to America, right? We don't like it when they do it to us, so let's not go to Africa and do it to them. That's what I'm going to say about that. All right. And then there's the exodus back to the United States. Despite big plans for new homes and businesses, many Black Americans who move to Africa do not stay. Omosede Eholor, 31, moved to Accra in 2015 after becoming enamored of the city while studying abroad there. But she decided to leave in 2020 because she felt she was missing out on life back home in New York and the big events of family and friends. And she began to feel that the daily stresses around frequent power outages and cultural differences were changing her for the worse, making her quick to anger. How much of yourself are you losing in the process of trying to adapt to a culture? Miss Eholor said. Ghana was not going to adapt to her. Exactly. Erika Bennett, 73, the founder of the nonprofit Diaspora Africa Forum, said that Black Americans came to Ghana in droves in 2020, and they are still coming. But Miss Bennett, who has lived in Africa for 40 years, said that many Americans are not cut out for life in Africa, and she urged those considering the move to visit first. Africa is not for everybody, she said. That's exactly what I said at the beginning of this live stream, and I didn't even read this article until I started with y'all. So yeah, like I said, Africa is not for everybody. Power outages, burning trash, roads with potholes, corrupt police, violence sometimes. Not every Africa is 20 times safer than America, trust me. But yeah, there are places where it can get dicey and stuff like that. Many of these nations are unstable. I know I'm sound like I'm going down tropes and stereotypes about Africa, but all these things need to be considered if we really consider the BLAXIT movement to Africa. But that's just my take on this article. I'm very glad to see the New York Times cover this story. It's very important that we're talking about Black Americans seeking a new opportunity as we're looking at the mass shooting that happened in Kansas City, where about 20 plus people were shot. A woman lost her life. Other people might be paralyzed or lose their lives as a result of the injury, and the other senseless acts of violence that will certainly happen this year in America. Hell, tomorrow there could be a mass shooting at a supermarket where some white supremacist, racist terrorist runs up in there and tries to lay down 20 Mexicans or 30 Black people or something. We know the violence in America will continue to happen. We know the economic disparity in America will continue to persist in the most capitalistic, wicked nation on earth. We know that Black life and Black expression will continue to be under assault in our schools, in our homes, in our churches, in society at large. We do need to find a better option. In my opinion, there will be some brave people who will stay and fight in Alabama, in New York, in Maryland, whatever. But some of us still love our lives, still want to see progress for Black people. But we know that we're only here for 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. Why not try to live the best life as possible without being sellouts by going out of the country? That's my opinion. That's my opinion. And for me, I will never return to the US to live there permanently because of the violence, because of the inequality, because of the racism that permeates in America, in that order, right? And yeah, it doesn't have to be Africa. It might be Africa. I don't know where life will take me. I've sort of been flying by the seat of my pants, and it's been working all right now. But I really like Hungary. Hungary's cool. Europe is cool for any Black Americans considering it, and I highly suggest all of you, if you are Black American, to consider at least. You don't have to, but do consider a backup plan. Find a country, find a nation, find a space or a place that you feel like could be safe for you and your family if you are really trying to get out of the belly of the beast, which is the United States of America. Any comments, any questions? I'm reacting to everything in the comment section. Anybody is more than welcome to jump in here, but I want to send a shout out to my beautiful wife, Act Dennis, for leaving a comment. Shout out to Milo for leaving a comment. Shout out to KL for leaving a comment. And yeah, if you want more live streams, if you want more stuff like that, you got to leave comments saying that you like my content, and I'll jump back on here more. But I'm going to continue to, work on MF Doom, continue writing for Culturalist Theory, continue, working hard every day. So Acti says, I love you too, boo, and peace to y'all.